Greetings, everyone. This short video will introduce the public, scholars and laypeople alike, to the redesigned Oceana 2, the online corpus of the inscriptions of ancient North Arabia, now hosted at The Ohio State University, directed by Michael McDonald and me, Ahmed Al-Jallad. Oceana began in 2013 at Oxford under the direction of Michael McDonald, growing out of the former Safiatic database designed by him, Leila Na'meh, and Geraldine King. The original Oceana project ended in 2017 and saw the design of a capable FileMaker database by Dan Burt and the insertion of more than 30,000 texts by the project's original team. After this period, funding ran out, and substantial updates and improvements and corrections were no longer possible. Last year, my colleague James Moore and I obtained a small startup grant to transfer Ociana to OSU and revise and redesign the database with the help of our programmer and developer, Dr. Allison Furlong. While online, Oceana 2 is still very much in production, and new functionalities will become available over the next year. Nevertheless, the present database is far superior to its predecessor. It is no longer in FileMaker, but in SQL, and because we can now update it in real time, new inscriptions are inserted into it daily. To give you an idea of what is out there, at the time of going online, Oceana 2 contained about 36,000 Safiatic inscriptions, about 3,700 Hismaic inscriptions. Over the last 10 years, the Badia Epigraphic Survey Project in the Harra has produced more than 450,000 photographs. Most of these have not been studied. But if we assume that each inscription is associated with 5 photographs, then we're talking about 90,000 texts. And let's say half of those, for the sake of argument, are known. And that's a very high estimate. Then we're talking about 45,000 new texts. That's larger than the corpus of Safiatic currently in Oceana. That material is being studied and slowly put online, as I'll show you in a bit. The same is true of Hismaic. There are hundreds, thousands of Hismaic texts from the Saudi Hisma and beyond that have not been inserted. My survey in northern Northwest Arabia in 2022 alone documented hundreds of new Hismaic inscriptions. These need to be studied and put online. So you'll see that Oceana 2 will continue to grow. It's a dynamic database. It will be added to and it will continue to grow daily, and functionalities as well will be added. So let's get right to it. Let's look at Oceana 2, at some of its functionalities and basically how to use the database. We can look here at the startup page. Now, this is my page here. You can see website administration. This would not be, all of this is not available to the average user. This is the editorial page, but that's okay. So the startup page is pretty simple. You have the short history of the project in the sidebar, various important things that you should read before examining the inscriptions, before using the inscriptions. So, for example, the editorial conventions will tell you, what all these symbols mean and what they mean in terms of reading and interpreting the text. You have a bit here about the staff, people who are editing the material and managing the database. Okay, and then here on the side, you also have a bar talking about scripts. You can get some basic information about the scripts used in the database. Not all of them, the ancient North Arabian scripts primarily. Very good. So then, let's move into the search functions. The first thing you can do is go to search references. And this is very useful, for example, if you're reading an article or you see a citation of an inscription and all of the bibliographic information is not given, you could simply go here and look up either the citation by name or the siglum. So let's say we want to see, we see an inscription in an article reference with WH. We don't know exactly what that is. Well, we can type WH here and it brings up the full citation. It tells you WH, the siglum refers to this publication, Winnett and Harding, 1978, and there's the full citation. Okay, excellent. Let's say now, here we're curious that we want to look up a specific scholar. We want to see everything that, for example, Ali al-Manasir has published in Oceana. Well, that's quite simple. We can just write his name, and voila, we have everything, every publication his name appears in, right? So these are a different sigla here on the side, and these are texts recorded by Al Maasir, and different publications by him as well. Excellent. So that's the reference search. Now we get to the database. The database search gives you basically two options. You have a simple search, and this is the easiest thing to use. You have a few fields. Again, let's say you find a publication or you find a siglum or a reference in a publication, you want to look it up quickly, you can type in the siglum. Or if you're just curious about various subjects, you can type in various subjects here and see all inscriptions that pertain to these subjects. So for example, I want to see all inscriptions that have to do with building. I can do that, and I'll get a list of inscriptions here that deal with the building of a structure. Likewise, I can look up scripts, for example, any kind of script that I want, and look up all inscriptions that have to do with that script. So here I have building and the script. I look at them together. I have 34 Safavidic inscriptions that deal with building. Now, I should say, this is something that we should be aware of also when it comes to original Ociana. The tagging is still very much a work in progress. Many of the inscriptions are not tagged correctly yet, so we're cleaning that up from the previous Ociana. They were, let's say, mistagged or not comprehensively tagged, so we're cleaning that up. Many inscriptions are not tagged at all for these kinds of subjects. So you don't get a comprehensive list at this moment when you do these types of searches. You get sort of an idea of what's out there. We are still working on that, and so in the future, that should become clear. One thing that's also very nice here that you can do that wasn't available in the original Ociana is, let's say I want to look up Safavidic inscriptions. Now, we know Safavidic inscriptions are overwhelmingly names. But I want to look up Safavidic inscriptions that only have prayers in them. I'm not so interested, or only narratives, for example, that have actually text, that are not just names. So I can click narratives here, and I could fill up any other subject I like, and it will bring back all the Safavidic inscriptions with narratives. There are 3,040 tagged Safavidic inscriptions with narratives at this moment. Could be more, out of a corpus of 36,000, right, just to give you an idea, which is quite interesting. Very good. Now that is the simple search. If we go to advanced search, we have more options. Here, I can put in transliterated text if I'm looking for something. Now, we heard the complaints about the original Ociana. There was no keyboard for diacritics, so people had to either have that keyboard on their computer or to find the diacritics somewhere else. In this Ociana, you have a keyboard here that can help you. So let's say I want to look up a text which is ra'aya, and well, I've already looked it up, ra'aya hadan. Here's my text, and I actually want to find that exact text, that exact phrase in an inscription. I can click phrase. If I want to find an inscription just contains these words, but not in any particular order, I can click all words. So those are my two options. You can also search with translations. Here you have parts of speech. Remember, again, this goes back to tagging. This is dependent on the quality and consistency of the tags in the old Ociana. And you cannot take those for granted. So we cannot at this moment click, for example, adverb and get all adverbs that are in Ociana. It won't produce that. It will produce all inscriptions that have been tagged for adverbs, and whether they've been tagged correctly or not is unclear. Anyway, we are improving that, so hopefully in the near future that will work perfectly. Script, you have script here as well, but you also, in addition to script, have something called script variant. So this Ociana recognizes the subdivisions of the various ancient North Arabian inscriptions. So for example, let's do one that's well known in Dadanitic. We know in Dadanitic that we have two different variants. We have let's say, we call them neutrally 1 and 2. In the literature, you can find a reference as for Dadanitic and the Lehianitic phrase as being number 2 or what have you. But you are able to search inscriptions based on their script type as well. Now, that's important because you can then filter for paleography, which is very nice. Now, this here is not working 100% because this functionality did not exist in Ociana 1, which means everything needs to be retagged. All new inscriptions inserted are tagged for this for these features, but older inscriptions are not, and that needs to be done. All right, so it will not give you all results at this moment, but then again, in a near future, it should. Well, near is relative. I don't know how near, but we'll see. You can search by site, region, and country. All right. So let's say here we're going to get let's say we want to look for a site. Here are many sites in Jordan. You can scroll down, or you can just type in something that you want. For example, here I want something like Ma'an area. I can find Ma'an area and all inscriptions that come from there. Excellent. Genealogies, like we said earlier, but in the advanced search, you can do genealogies and you can actually type in the number of generations you want to find. All right. So these types of functionalities were available in the Oceana 1, but they had their own pages. They were a little bit more convoluted and difficult to use. Here, it's all in one place. Excellent. So the script variant being a new functionality is an important one. The keyboards and these types of precise searches are also important as well. And remember, you can fill these up and do complex searches as you like with the advanced search. Excellent. So let's then kind of take a look at how Oceana 2 is also improving on Oceana 1 in published inscriptions. So here's a very interesting published inscription, very nice one, WH 3923. In Oceana 1, we can see here is the transliteration, the translation, and this was done. Of course, here we don't have yes, okay, here's the translation by Badah, and he sought refuge in Ha'ilah, Audha biha'ilah. Very nice. The apparatus tells you about the Oceana reading differs from the apparatus. The Oceana reading is in fact taken from this article here. But there's nothing that explicitly tells you where the reading comes from, which is always a problem. You can infer it, but there's nothing that really tells you where it comes from. But the Oceana reading comes from that article. Here's the reading of the Editio Princeps, the WH, which we talked about when in Harding earlier. It gives you that. And then a short commentary. So this is the original Oceana page. Now let's look up this same inscription in Oceana 2. We will find a number of differences, improvements, I hope. So view record. Here we see that the scrolling to the photos is much easier. We have the photos. The photos are also given copyrights, all right? So we can know who these belong to and the terms of their reuse. That was sort of ambiguous in the previous Oceana. The photographs we have the same information here, but it tells you who the reading belongs to underneath, right? The reading and translation belong to Michael McDonald. Saphitic, script type 1, right? So it's been tagged. Here we have our interpretations, awad verb, and I'll talk about this in a bit. It's very, very exciting. But the notes and commentary have been greatly expanded, right? So we have here, for example, and you can think of this here as a real, I think, kind of scholarly contribution. The commentary now is expanded to basically situate this inscription in sort of the scholarly literature that exists and its significance to the researcher. So the formula, the prayer Awadha B, he sought refuge in, divine name is previously attested, but what's remarkable here is the invocation of the god Ha'ilah. Now, MacDonald, in a book review that maybe many people would not be aware of, especially people who are working more casually with this material, suggested very interesting suggestion, namely that Ha'ilah might refer to the Christian God, right? Equivalent to the Paleo-Arabic Al-Ilah, a calque of Khotheos, Alaha, and so forth. That's a very interesting suggestion. And in many, I think, because it's in a book review, many people may not come across it. So Oceana is the place really to kind of get everything that's been interesting said about any particular inscription. That's as we continue working in that way. And so you have the full information here. Here you can see where the original reading comes from, MacDonald 1989. So the attribution is very clear. All right, we have information about the script details, and then there's the bibliography, right? So the MacDonald 2024 here, where that suggestion was made, and here is the citation for the original reading. All bibliographical entries that are associated with inscriptions that have sigla the siglum precedes the bibliographical entry in this way. So for example, MCS is a siglum. If you take that to your siglum search, you will be able to find all inscriptions associated with this or published in this article. Very good. So you want to cite this particular inscription. One thing you can do is you would cite, I think, the reading of MacDonald 1989. If you want to reference, send someone a reference to say, all right, I want to reference this discussion here. That reference is very easy to make because we have now on each Oceana card who actually wrote or updated the card, who was responsible for making this here. And what you can see here is that I am, well, I did this actually today. So the card is, as of today, the way it looks, and this can be cited. So this would be cited, okay, Oceana, the way you would cite a website, and the authorship of this particular card would be me, other people working on Oceana, like Michael, Joel Norris, and various students in the future. They will have their names associated with every card that they update, and that can be the citation of the card itself. So we no longer cite anonymously Oceana, whoever put up the card, but rather the particular individual responsible for making this. And this can be considered really a scholarly contribution, I think. Very good. What you can see here, and this is something that you will only see as a registered user. So in the future, in the near future, Oceana will have two tiers of users. The public user, unregistered, and what they will not see is all of this geographic information. And there's security reasons for that. The registered users, and this can be any scholar who signs up and registers for the website, will be allowed to access the scholarly, geographic information, which is produced on a map here as well. And at that point, too, we'll have a function such that you can search inscriptions, click a number of inscriptions that you like, and they can be plotted on a map directly. So let's say I search for every occurrence of the verb raya, to pasture, and I want to see what that looks like on the map. I can do that, highlight all those inscriptions, and the database will plot them directly on a map. Again, that's a functionality that's in production, and we will get there, but the beginnings of it are already available. Excellent. Talk about something else that's very interesting, and it's going to be the lexicon. Right now in production is a comprehensive lexicon of ancient North Arabia that's based on the Oceana database. That is, each word is going to have an entry in a lexicon, and then you'll have a tab to click lexicon. That lexicon will give you the part of speech, the definition, the commentary, etymology, and so forth, and then a full concordance of the occurrence of that verb in every inscription, broken down by corpus. So it will be tremendously powerful. And again, we can update it. That's the most important thing. With all of with this type of material, anything you write in the way of, let's say, grammars or lexica will be outdated at the end of the next mission. And so by having an online function like this associated with Oceana that can be generated in real time, we're talking about a very, very powerful tool. Excellent. So that is the new search results. We can see how nice they are, I think. Many new inscriptions have been inserted from publications. So for example, we can see here, let's actually look at this one. This is from a new publication. These are two new texts, Hispanic texts, that have been recently published. And we can see here, of course, it's at the Madame Museum, and it doesn't have necessarily coordinates. But this artifact here was published in a new publication by Hayajne in Prioletta, well, relatively new, 2018, I should say, but after the end of the first Oceana. And you can see here that these new publications are being inserted into the database so they can be searched, okay? We have, again, notes and commentary, the original credits, original reading credit, and so forth. So quite a, so again, Oceana 2 is constantly being updated daily with new publications put in. It's already, let's say, there's much more material in here than the original Oceana. What we are also doing now, and this is a very big work, is inserting material from the Badia surveys. And I will show you some of that has been done. We'll look at BES 19S. So this is from the summer survey of 2019. So far, there are 19 texts put in, all by me. I mean, I'm sort of doing this as a, on the side. But nevertheless, some very, very interesting texts here. And these texts are, let's say, many of them are unpublished. Some of them are published. So this text here, for example, very interesting one. A man called Taymallah, son of Anhak, of the people of Bosra. All right, so this is a fascinating text. This inscription here has been previously published, and you can find the publication here in 2022. I published it with my colleague Ali al-Manasir. So in terms of citation, you can cite the original publication. The readings come from that. Or if you want, for some reason, to cite the card, and there's no extra information on this card than you would find in the original publication, we can see the citation of the card here. But this siglum also has unpublished material. So for example, this tremendously interesting inscription from the same location is published for the first time on Oceana, right? It's published for the first time in Oceana, and you can see that here in the references. BES 19S, inscriptions recorded during the summer season of the Badia Epigraphic Survey 2019. That is the publication, the only signum associated with it, so it is published for the first time here. It's a very, very interesting text that well, I think maybe we don't understand it all quite clearly. And for that reason, there is let's say, a detailed discussion in the commentary. So the inscription is a grieving inscription. All these folks died. The whole lineage of Amarat were driven mad because the dead, were struck down by fate, dated to the year Mughayr, son of Khayr, the lineage of Rawah. Then you have this very strange phrase. Okay. Yeah, cried out for Nassas who was at sea. All right, let's see. Script detail. Original, here we are. We have the discussion of the reading, what it might mean, other possible interpretations of that word. And so it's actually quite interesting. In this case, in this inscription, the how do we say it? The citation would be here. That would be the Editio Princeps, right? The first edition of this inscription. Very good. There are also, what you can also do with this text that we, let's say, didn't have at least function. It was possible in the previous Oceana, but wasn't, let's say, comprehensive, is look at associated inscriptions. So, for example, let's look at this inscription here. Search. This is a very nice text. We'll go to here. This inscription. We have a man called Hamlet, son of Salim, al-List, the bandit. And this individual, if we go to associated items, actually wrote, or it's associated with multiple inscriptions. And he wrote one here. We click here, this takes you to another text that the same man wrote. So the associated inscriptions link to other inscriptions and oftentimes tell you other inscriptions about other inscriptions that this individual wrote, okay? Or that or that might be on the same rock face or what have you. So that's a very nice functionality. You'll notice as well that new pictures, when available, are associated or being attached to the cards. So here's this photograph that was taken by Ali Manasir of this text. Here's a later photograph. This one was taken at a later point in 2019 of the same text. In some cases, let's look at this. In some cases that's you'll have pictures of sites as well when available. We have also a number of North Arabian texts, but also Greek texts too. So let us check some of those out. Here we have, for example, a collection of 4 Greek inscriptions from the Badia Epigraphic Survey 19S. Okay, so these all have been, published. They've all been published, but you have them here, which is very nice. So this record here is a Greek inscription by a man called Matros Sabahenos, but it's all been misspelled. You can find the discussion of that in the commentary. Again, the references where the text was originally discussed. If you go to associated items, you can see that this man has also produced the Safvidic inscription, which is here. Same rock, of course, but you can know it that way. And here is the Safvidic inscription associated with it. Very good. So that is basically where we are with Oceana 2. It's a very powerful database. One of the things that you should be aware of also when using it is pay attention to when the card was updated. Since we do intend to revise all the material, things updated in November and December are the product of that revision. Any card that has a date associated with a time earlier than that has not been checked. So for example, let's just do WH1. So this one here just says updated 16 September 2024, and that is when Oceana 2 went online. So this inscription, I mean, everything might be fine with this card. I don't know. I've not looked at it until now. But there may be, yeah, so there are some inconsistencies and things that need to be improved. So for example, here we have Ed Pro. And so what we need to do here is actually put the actual citation for the original reading as such. Small things like that. So a lot of work, but hopefully we'll have a team working on this. Maybe hopefully a postdoc, we'll see. But we'll be working on this development consistently over the next year and expect actually a lot of improvements, I think, and new functionalities. And those will come online. One of the things that will be available soon is a message board on the page itself that will tell you about all the updates that are happening. Okay, very good. I think that's all I have to say about this now. If you have questions about Oceana, you can email Oceana here at ociana.osu.edu. If you have publications of ancient North Arabian inscriptions that you think should be put into the database, you can also email those publications to us if they're not in there already. And of course, yeah, other types of comments, questions, improvements, errors, anything you see, you can email here. And again, in the future, when we're going to have login abilities and for, let's say, for users to access some of the functionalities like geographic information, you will email this site this email to sign up and to get that access. Okay, but that we're not ready for that yet. That comes later. Okay, thank you all very much. I hope that this short tutorial was useful, and take care and good luck.